Hello everyone and welcome to my channel, Diana and the Book Hunt. Thank you so much for joining me today where I'll be discussing my personal challenge of 2021. Before I go into the two challenges that I set for myself in 2021, I just want to do my would you rather question that I typically do in my videos. I usually have this bowl with the questions where I pick out one question to read out for you, but today actually my 2-year-old son already picked the question for me, as you can see here. He damaged it a little bit, but I'm going to read it out and see what he picked out for me. The question is, would you rather read a book where the main character is killed off or the love interest is killed off? He picked probably one of the best questions out of the whole bunch. And this is kind of a tricky question because obviously it really depends on the book that you pick up. There are certain books where you're very invested in the main character or the protagonist's story, their development, their growth, their being able to find a love in their life and happily ever after. So it would be difficult to choose to kill them off. But in certain situations, in certain books, you have main characters which are really frustrating. They are not very healthy with their choices towards what to do with their life, so you get frustrated with them. And oftentimes those types of characters have love interests which are very interesting, and you're actually invested in their story and you're really rooting for the main character to pick that person to be their love interest. So it really depends on the type of story you pick out. I would say, if I have to give an example, because I'm going to discuss that book today, it's going to be just fun to discuss it a little bit. The book I'm going to talk about today for one of the challenges that I set for myself is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. In this specific book, we have a man, Billy, who has two women in his life that he has loved, Daisy, who is his bandmate, and his wife, Camilla. And I would say that out of these people, I would kill off Billy simply because he's a man who couldn't give his whole heart to one of those two women. His heart, his love was divided in two, and I do really believe that those specific women really deserve to be loved fully by a man without having to share his devotion with someone else. In the specific situation, the story, both of the women are really strong enough to deal with the situation, so that's why I love the book a lot. It was one of my favorites of 2021. But yeah, if I just have to pick someone to kill off for this specific question's sake, it would be Billy from Daisy Jones and the Six. In today's video, I want to discuss with you a couple of personal challenges that I set for myself for the year of 2021. The first challenge that I set out to do for myself is to pick up audiobooks, because prior to this year, I've only read physical books or ebooks, and I do have to say that I'm quite, conservative and a bit stuck when it comes to picking up different types of media. When it comes to books specifically, it took me quite a while to get into ebooks when I bought my first e-reader, and I've always kind of been reluctant to pick up audiobooks. I don't know why. There is no specific reason, to be very honest. It's just I've always had some kind of reluctance to do so. But this year I just decided that I really want to try it out, because I had heard that it's quite useful, specifically when you do some multitasking. For example, if you're cooking, cleaning, driving, doing groceries or whatever, you just can stick earbuds in your ears and listen to a nice story instead of just doing something that you're not liking to do. You can combine it with something that you do like to do. So that really worked out for me perfectly, because obviously we're in a work at home environment now with the pandemic. So what happens is I cook for breakfast, lunch and dinner. I go grocery shopping. I do a lot of chores at home. So within those tasks that I do, I always just listen to some books, and that really helps me stay positive within the tasks that I'm doing, that I don't really get in a kind of a domestic rut. So I'm so happy that I decided to do this for myself this year. In the meantime, also audiobooks let you get a faster pace of reading, because you can also adjust the speed with which you're listening to a specific book. That has also really helped me out with achieving a greater amount of books that I've read for this year, so I'm happy about that as well. Let me tell you about 2 books that I picked up in an audiobook format, which really were very impactful for me because specifically I read them in audiobook format. First book I want to mention is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid, the book that I mentioned during my Would You Rather question. That book is so interesting because it's written as an interview, and it's an interview of a 60s and 70s rock band, their progression within how they became famous and how they fell apart, and their relationships between different bandmates. It's not a real band, but I'll tell you, it really felt like I was reading the story of like the Rolling Stones or just any type of other rock band which was very famous during the 60s and the 70s. Because I picked it up in an audiobook format, it was so impactful for me because the audiobook has a full cast of characters. So what happened when I read it was I was listening to their voices, and probably because they were picked out so well, I could very well distinguish who was who. They had, like Daisy has this husky voice, this rasp in her voice. In the audiobook, it just made all the difference, just the quality of the voices which were picked out for the story. And I was listening to that book and my imagination was so prickled, it was so vivid towards imagining what was happening within the story, that it felt like I was watching a Hollywood movie and listening to their voices. It was really a different type of experience for me, if I have to be honest, because just reading out a physical book or an ebook, it has its advantages towards certain stories because you can yourself imagine specific characters, how they sound, how they move, how they react, and how they look like. But when you read an audiobook like this, for this specific story, listening to their voices really makes all the difference, because in the specific case there are many characters, so there's only that much that your imagination can do to really picture all of their voices. This was really marvelous to hear. I cannot rave enough about how well performed this book was in an audiobook format, so if you were to pick it up, please do so in an audiobook format. You will not regret it. The second book that I want to talk about in relation to an audiobook being able to contribute a bit more towards specific stories is by Jessie Q. Sutanto, which is called Dial A for Aunties. This book was recommended by Haley on Haley in Bookland's channel, and I absolutely adore her content. I have to say, I'm so jealous of her commitment and so in awe of her effort that she puts into her videos. Currently she's doing Bookmas, where she's bringing out a video every single day in December. I'm absolutely baffled by her commitment and the way that she's putting out videos every day, and they're all so engaging and so fun to watch. I definitely watch all of them, so just a shout out and a praise towards Haley here, and thank you so much for recommending this book to me, because it made out all the difference for me this year. It was one of my favorite reads. And let me just tell you a little bit what the story is about. It's about a Chinese Indonesian family, the female parts of the family. The main character, Maddie, she is in business with her mother and aunties. They're doing a wedding business together. One of them is baking cakes, the other one is doing flower arrangements, the third one is a performer, singer, and she herself is a photographer. So they're doing like a full package for a wedding. And they have currently a very big contract that they're doing a big wedding at a specific resort. And by accident, the story starts with a murder. So there is a bit of a mystery, a lot of humor, and a lot of family dynamics in this book. And also there is a romance, a second chance romance within the book as well. The audiobook format really worked for me because When you pick up this book in a physical format, um, obviously you can't get the real feel of how these characters sound like, and the way that their dynamics work. You just read out the words, you imagine specific things when situations happen, but really to hear them speak to each other, the way that specific situations play out, and also their accents and their way of speech, it just made all the difference for me. I haven't picked up a book lately which has made me laugh out loud, and this was really the first one in a very long time, so I was so happy that I got to read this in audiobook format, and I definitely recommend that you do as well. So that about wraps up my first challenge of the year. Now I want to talk about the second challenge that I wanted to do, because I really wanted to provoke myself to do something new with the reading that I'm doing, and that is to pick up fantasy romance books. Typically, I tend to read contemporary romances, young adult, new adult, adult, also dark romances, suspenseful romances. I don't typically read any historicals, but I just wanted to mix things up and see whether fantasy romance is going to be for me. I've always been very intimidated by the genre, I have to admit. The books are really chunky, or usually a lot of books within a series, which really asks for a lot of engagement and time to invest in. So I've always been very fearful of trying them out, to be very honest. But last year I just encountered so many booktubers who are raving about specific series and authors. I read so much about specific books which are so highly rated and beloved that I really wanted to challenge myself and see whether this specific genre is going to be for me. So at the beginning of the year, I decided I really want to try this out, and if it's going to work, it's going to open new doors for me, new ways and variation that I can put into my reading habits. And if it doesn't work, at least I will have tried, and I wouldn't have a regret, and always kind of yearn towards trying it out. So I'm happy that I challenged myself to do this year. What I did when I decided to do this is check out the specific author series that I've already read. I've read Sephanie Garber's Caraval series. So I went into her series on Goodreads and checked out recommendations which follow up the same type of style. And what I encountered was Jennifer L. Armentrout from Blood and Ash series. And I decided to pick that one up because it was the most hyped one at that moment. I enjoyed the first book and I was like, okay, this works for me at the moment, let me just continue on with the series. I was happy to see that the second book had already come out, and the third one was also following up in the following month or so. So I was really happy that I could kind of continue on with the series without having to wait too much. And I absolutely loved the second and the third book. So I was like, okay, this is a success for me, so let's just try something else as well. Because it was the beginning of the year and I knew that the Shadow and Bone series was going to come out on Netflix, I decided to pick up the series by Leigh Bardugo, and I was so happy that I did that because it really contributed towards my enjoyment of the series on Netflix as well. I absolutely loved all three books, and I'm definitely going to pick up Crooked Kingdom and Six of Crows as well. I didn't manage to do that this year, but I'm going to do that in 2021. I'm also going to read Nikolai's books, I promise. I absolutely adore him in the story, so I'm going to pick up his books as well. So after I finished the Shadow and Bone series, I picked up Legendborn by Tracy Deonn, and I was absolutely stoked that I got to read that book. It's a young adult fantasy and it was right up my alley. I definitely recommend it, and I can't wait for the second book to come out, I think in 2022. After I had 3 successes in a row, I thought, okay, so I'm going to check out Sarah J. Maas's books because she's like a household name within the fantasy romance genre. I really need to pick up any of the series that she has written, so I can check out whether I'm going to enjoy them as well. So I picked up A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I absolutely adored. The second book is in my top 3 of 2021, so I'm absolutely raving about the fact that I got to read those books. So all in all, just to mention, this challenge has really worked for me. It has definitely opened new doors towards my reading experience and the books that I'm going to be picking up in the future. Now, a new challenge that I want to set for myself is to pick up fantasy books which are not specifically romance books. I definitely want to pick up the Mistborn series by Brandon Sanderson. They've been recommended by many different booktubers, including Emily Fox and Murphy Napier. I definitely want to broaden my horizons and check out books which I don't typically read, but now I know that I'll probably and definitely be enjoying because they are written in such a marvelous and magical way. So yeah, I'm absolutely stoked that I got to do this, and I definitely recommend to anyone who is intimidated in challenging themselves to do so, please do it, because at least you will know whether something like that is going to be for you. I've been thinking about whether I want to do a new personal challenge for myself in 2022, and I've decided that I do want to do one, but this time only one. I want to pick up at least 10 books off of my TBR that have been on there for quite a while, because what happens is I usually tend to go through Goodreads and just add so many books on there which are recent or upcoming that all of the books that have been added last year or the year before kind of go into the background of my TBR and I tend to forget about them. So I really want to challenge myself to read at least 10 of those books that have been added on a couple of years ago or maybe last year and I've never gotten to them. That will make me feel really good about myself, to be very honest, so I really am going to challenge myself to try it out. That is all that I have for you today, my friends. Thank you so much for being on this journey with me to map out all of the personal challenges that I set for myself in 2021. If you want to support me, please like my video and subscribe to my channel. Also, I'll be trying to bring out a new video quite soon. If you want to see when it comes out, please click on the bell notification button. And also comment in the comment box below if you have any personal challenges of your own that you want to share with me. Maybe I'll need to consider more personal challenges to do in the future. Have a wonderful day today and happy reading. Bye-bye.